Then I looked into how equitable practices were being applied. The more I dug, the clearer it became that these approaches often involved giving different students varying amounts of resources based on their individual needs. For instance, a school district might provide additional tutoring for students who struggled with reading, while also offering specialized training for teachers working with English learners. These strategies made perfect sense in theory. After all, meeting students where they were seemed like a fundamental aspect of fostering success. However, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that such practices were not fair in the traditional sense. It seemed to stem from this prevailing belief that everyone needed to reach the same destination in education, that we all had to arrive at a predetermined endpoint together. But why? Why did we insist on defining success as a uniform outcome? It felt like a throwback to the one-size-fits-all model that had plagued education for decades. In my heart, I sensed that learning should be less about conforming to a standard and more about each student flourishing according to their unique potential. I imagined two students, Maya and James, both enrolled in the same high school, yet their backgrounds couldn't have been more different. Maya had been raised in an affluent neighborhood where educational resources abounded, tutoring centers lined the streets, and every student had access to extracurricular activities and college prep courses. Meanwhile, James lived in an underfunded area, struggling against systemic barriers like poverty and limited access to technology at home. Maya's parents could afford private SAT prep classes and personal tutors. Meanwhile, James had to navigate his studies alone, often working late shifts after school just to help his family make ends meet. The school recognized this disparity and provided Maya with advanced placement courses while funneling extra resources toward James, like mentorship programs and after-school tutoring sessions. On one hand, I appreciated the thoughtfulness behind allocating resources according to need. It was an attempt at leveling the playing field. But when I took a step back, I questioned whether this truly fostered fairness or simply reinforced existing inequalities under a new guise. How could we expect James to compete on equal footing with Maya when she started her academic journey miles ahead? Sure, giving him extra support was necessary, but did it truly bridge the gap? Wasn't there something inherently unfair about requiring him to work harder than she did just because he faced different circumstances? This discrepancy gnawed at me as I sifted through more examples. In many districts across the country, resource allocation skewed dramatically based on perceived need. Some schools even adopted weighted funding models aimed at providing more support for students from low-income families or those needing special education services. But these efforts often came with strings attached accountability measures that mandated specific outcomes for all students, regardless of their individual paths. This approach left little room for divergence from established norms. The rigid metrics of success loomed large over every classroom. Everyone was expected to achieve similar academic results by graduation day, as if there were only one right way to learn. As I contemplated these practices further, frustration bubbled within me. Who decided what constituted success in education? The very idea that we could quantify learning outcomes in standardized ways seemed reductive at best and honestly damaging at worst. Why not embrace diverse definitions of achievement instead? Why not celebrate the fact that some students might excel in creative arts, while others thrived in sciences or trades? Education shouldn't be about moulding every child into a carbon copy of an ideal learner. It should cultivate individual strengths and interests. My thoughts swirled around this pivotal question. What if our ultimate goal shifted away from getting every student into identical boxes labelled successful? What if we instead focused on nurturing unique talents, each child's potential unfolding organically rather than forcing them into pre-established moulds? I felt invigorated by these revelations as I jotted down ideas in my notebook. Sketches of alternative educational models emphasizing personalization over conformity danced across the page. If only educators and policymakers could embrace flexibility rather than adhering strictly to traditional paradigms. That would mark true progress toward equitable education. An ecosystem where differences flourished instead of being stifled under blanket expectations set by those removed from actual classrooms. As my excitement mounted again with each stroke of my pen, filling pages filled with potential solutions bursting forth like spring blossoms, breaking through winter's chill, I knew my mission wasn't merely about theory anymore. It was about inspiring real change where it mattered most.